US President Donald Trump is always in the news. Of recent, the reason for that has been the suspension of his social media accounts or accounts linked to him based on the allegation that he has used those platforms in ways that violate the terms and conditions of the social media giants. We saw Facebook suspending his account indefinitely, Twitter suspending it permanently, and of recent, YouTube suspending an account that was linked to the US president. Supporters of this move have said that President Trump was using those platforms to incite the public against the democratic structures of the United States. But critics are saying that this is an affront on free speech. They are saying that if this trend is allowed to continue, then we would have handed unprecedented power to social media companies. Let's look at a related scenario here in Nigeria, EndSARS. EndSARS took place a few months ago, and we saw people going out on the streets and protesting against police brutality and bad governance. They went out on the streets, and at a stage, some people were calling for a change of the people in power, or at least it was interpreted as such. People in government here in Nigeria heavily criticized social media companies, especially Twitter, particularly when the Twitter CEO launched a campaign to raise funds for pro-EndSARS objectives. And so, coming back to President Trump, many are asking that has this not been a situation of double standards? Are the social media companies or big tech, referring to the big technology companies out there, are they constituting an affront to free speech, or are they a possible threat to free speech? Or should we just accept that this was done in good faith and this was for the best of the world? What are the implications on countries with emerging democracies like Nigeria? And of course, what's the implication on a more mature democracy such as the United States? For these and many more, I have with me a very special guest who's a social media specialist, and we're going to be discussing this issue. If this sounds like something that you are interested in, stick around and I'll be back right after this timeout. My name is Olumide Adeleye. Make sure you click that subscribe button and don't go anywhere. So this beautiful morning, I have with me a social media marketer, a digital marketer. He's also the CEO of Spark Connect Solutions. He is none other than Mr. Jide Bamidele. You're welcome on my show.
Thank you so much for having me here today.
Donald Trump, President of the United States, has been booted from Twitter. Booted from Twitter, suspended from Facebook, and kicked off some other platforms. What really is happening?
Well, I think what is really happening is that the platforms are exercising their rights to offer their service to whoever they think they want to offer it to, withholding their service from whoever they think they should not offer their service to. If you are violating their policies, you should be booted out.
I know that a number of people have argued that yes, they've done that for a number of people. It's not just Donald Trump. They've been doing it since inception and all of that. But there is also the counter-argument that this is the President of the United States we're talking about.
The more reason why he should be booted out is been condoned for too long. He has been abusing the platforms for a long time, even using the platform to abuse the owners of the platforms, attacking big tech on their platforms, talking about talking about election fraud, that obviously there is no physical proof that such happened, talking about almost everything that does not happen, neglecting his the duty of his office, and just making noise, throwing tantrums like a child all over the place just because you lost an election. So the platforms, I believe, have the right to choose whoever they want to offer their service to and whoever they think enough is enough with.
And that leads to a very strong argument with regards to the issue of free speech. People are saying that what they've done constitutes an affront on free speech, that it is a way of impeding another person's right to freedom of speech, and that it's a big setback for global freedom of speech. In fact, I've seen some narrations that are as dramatic as to say that the day Donald Trump was booted off those platforms and we all rejoiced was the day that we lost free speech in the world. What do you think about this argument?
I do not agree with that. Free speech is just like freedom of expression, right to life, which ends at the point where you start to infringe other people's rights. So if you think because there is freedom of speech, you can incite violence, you can cause the death of another person, you can attack another person, then that is not free speech.
But looking at that, some people would argue that what he said was just his own statements, that people died, that was consequential, that probably didn't happen because of what he said.
He incited people to go and riot, to go and stop the Congress from sitting, to go and stop the vice president from counting the votes. What he has always been doing, that they have always been marked as fake or false. Now he took it to another level and incited violence, which eventually led to what has never been seen in the history of the world, which actually led to the death of people. So and the reason why they booted him out is to prevent him from doing another one, because he was already, it seems instigating that, okay, I will not be at the inauguration, meaning you are free to attack that place. I'm not going to be there. And, obviously seeing his children, even physically present at the rally before they gassed people up. They left before the people started, entering into the Capitol. So I believe that they have all the rights to boot him out. And I do not think this is a gagging on our mouth for, stopping us from freedom of speech. No.
One more question along that line. So, Mark Zuckerberg, CEO of Facebook, is not a court of law. Jack, CEO of Twitter, is not a court of law.
Yes.
These are not people who are in law enforcement, and they are definitely not competent courts of law. And so, in many ways, whatever way they choose to interpret the law would be at best questionable, subject maybe to market forces, to economic influences. There are people who are saying that they're doing all they are doing only because that works for the market and it works for their own good and it has no impact on the larger world, especially considering that they are not the law. What do you think about that?
First statement I want to make is, at the point of signing up to these platforms, we all accepted their policies. And part of those policies is, if you violate their policy, they have a reserved right to throw you out. They have a reserved right to ban your account. They have a reserved right to knock you off, which they've exercised in the case of Donald Trump. About sometimes last year, late 2019 and 2020, a lot of Nigerian influencers were thrown off Twitter. People with 500,000 followers and all that. People with blue stick, just like Donald, were thrown out. Did we die? So, because he's the president of arguably the most powerful country in the world, which I believe is changing, does not give him the right to now invade another person's platform and do whatever he likes. Twitter is not White House. Facebook is not White House. And I do not believe anybody took away his freedom of speech. Is the most powerful president in the world, person in the world, arguably. So he still has his freedom of speech. He still has his media team in the White House. He can still release his videos, and all networks in the world will carry it, arguably. So Twitter is not preventing him from releasing his own videos, from saying whatever he wants to say. They just don't want him to say it on their platform.
You know, I'll come back to that very shortly, because I really want to explore that line of thought. But before that, let's look at the Nigeria situation, because that's where I want to narrow all of this to. In Nigeria, we had EndSARS.
Yes.
We had Occupy Nigeria several years ago. At that time, yes, it was driven by social media, but not to the extent that we saw with EndSARS, the recent EndSARS campaign that ended up resulting in what many people have called the Lekki massacre, and, you know, several deaths, arguably, and all of that. So we saw those scenarios. Now, one of the things that I've seen online is this comparison. People are saying that Jack Dorsey, CEO of Twitter, he threw off Donald Trump, US president, from his platform when Donald Trump was seen to be doing something that he felt was contravening Twitter's policies. And that was inciting people, maybe against the country, or whatever way they would put that. But people are arguing that the same thing happened in Nigeria. Now, I'm just stating a line of thoughts. That's possibly not my personal opinion, but people are arguing that the same thing happened in Nigeria, and that, in fact, the CEO of Twitter came up with an account through which people could donate to support that cause, and that cause eventually led to several deaths. Is that not an issue of double standards? And as a social media person, as somebody who's conversant with that landscape, what do you really think happened? What's your interpretation of that scenario?
Now, EndSARS campaign is quite different from what we saw in the United States. EndSARS was targeted at telling the Nigerian government to help stop police brutality. Nobody at the outset campaigned to abolish the Nigerian police. It is the anti-robbery squad, that tactical unit, that has outstayed its relevance, that has abused arguably every tech person in this country, that the Nigerian youth said they are tired of. Yes, it translated to, it's, moved from being an online campaign, which had been on for like 3 years before the 2020 physical protest. And remember that protest was a peaceful protest. We all witnessed it. We saw it play out in our faces. And for the first time in the history of Nigeria, I saw people protesting peacefully. And to be very honest with you, I've seen a lot of protests in my life, in my short life in this country. So, until, it was hijacked, whoever hijacked it, I have no authority to talk about who hijacked it. It was a peaceful protest. What we saw in the United States was nothing peaceful. Do you know that one of the people that were arrested was said to have explosives in his truck with live ammunitions? Okay, so somebody is carrying an explosive to the Congress, right? To the Capitol. And you are comparing that with the peaceful protest at Lekki, on the streets of Ibadan, at everywhere in the country. It's not. There's no comparison. There's nothing to be compared in these things. People used their social media to show different faces of police brutality. There are thousands of video evidences. There are thousands of accounts, police officers' account numbers that were used to collect money from people, to extort people, that were shared on social media. People shared their experiences. It is not even a one-person thing. So I don't understand why people are comparing that with what happened in the US, except politicians are just trying to use it to, give themselves a reason why they should come and gag people's mouth.
Let me play the devil's advocate here. If we look at the scenario in the US, it was a protest against what some people felt was a stolen election. They felt that the Democrats had stolen their election and that their own candidate, Donald Trump, was the one that actually won the election. Now, I'm sure that for any democratic country, that would be considered to be a very valid reason to protest if you think that an election has been stolen. And in Nigeria, people were protesting because of something that they considered to be valid as well, which was the issue, like you said, of police brutality. So if we look at these two things, we would see two valid reasons for protesting.
Yes.
But then, and at the end of the day, both of them degenerated into violence.
Yes.
The one in Lekki, the one in Nigeria, and the one in the United States. So, if one is better than the other, or if we're saying that one is allowed, the other is not allowed, who really becomes the judge? Is it the social media company, or should that role be left to the government? Or should, like many people have proposed, should we just leave everyone alone and allow anybody to say anything they want on their social media platforms, so that we know that there is freedom of speech everywhere and people are free to make up their minds with regards to what actions they want to take?
Now, the first thing I want to say is we cannot leave regulation of what people say on social media to government. We all know government everywhere in the world will use that to silence criticism. In democracy, people should be able to criticize government. When you are doing something that is wrong, something that does not go well with me as an individual, as a citizen of that country, I should be able to say, I think this is wrong. But I should not use it to attack. There's a difference between criticizing and attacking. There's a difference between saying this is wrong and saying, no, let's take over this government. Taking over government is another thing entirely. We can't leave the judgment to the government, because we know governments everywhere in the world are always biased. We cannot leave it free that everybody should say whatever he wants to say. For example, if we leave it free and I go on my social media platform, say I have 10,000 followers, and I post your picture and I say, anywhere you see this guy, stone him to death. Do you think you'll be free to walk freely on the road? Seeing the kind of influence people wage on social media. So the social media platforms will still have to control their platforms. The same way every business will be able to, still controls who have access to their business premises, who they offer their services to. Thanks to, the Republican, they made sure that the Supreme Court had to, judge a case where the bakery and the gay marriage. You remember that case where a gay couple wanted cake from a bakery and they said they cannot offer their service for gay marriage. And, the case was taken up by the Republican. They pushed it up to Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court eventually, said a company can decide who he offers his service to. So the same thing now applies to, social media. If you are not pleased with the regulations here, if you don't like the heat, get out of the kitchen.
That also leads to an argument along that line, which is that if you see Google, you see big tech, Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, all of them seem to be orchestrated towards kicking out anything that has to do with Donald Trump right now. And we've seen that with Parler, which would arguably be a separate platform. It's definitely not owned by Trump. It just seems to have a good number of Trump supporters who are using that platform right now. And it looks like there's an orchestrated attempt to silence them. So that's one of the theories I've heard, that it looks like all these people just want to keep us silent.
Nobody is silencing anybody. They're just taking the amplifier away from them. They can still send themselves text messages. They can still probably send themselves mails. So nobody is silencing anybody. They're just removing the amplifier.
Looking at that from another angle, now that we've identified that certain people control the amplifiers or the microphones.
Yes.
And those people can take them away when they feel that maybe a particular person or an organization is not keeping to their terms and conditions anymore. That means that those organizations, those social media companies are very powerful.
They should be.
With that kind of power, do you see any dangers? Do you see any potential threats to humanity as we've known it?
Well, with every power, irrespective of who the power, who is holding the power in his hands, there will always be threats to some other people. There will always be a level of damage that can be done. There will always be, so to say, problems. So we can't write it off. I can't say there's no threat. But that threat, how dangerous can it be compared to if I can just go online and say, I want to kill this guy today. And say, oh, this guy is a whatever, and I want to take him up. And knowing fully that I have people that could help me do that without even knowing if it's, one-on-one. So, threats will always be there. It will always be there. Nigerian government shut down TV stations for showing footages that they do not support.
Yes. Nigerian
government shut down AIT because of one program. I've forgotten the name of the program. It's a social media review program that Oimai was doing, and they had to flee the country. So, censorship of the media has always been in existence, especially in this part of the world, where government is not being run as an institution, but being run as something owned by a set of people.
So I must ask you this. Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, they've been updating their terms of service And one of the major changes has been that they will be exchanging information among all those Facebook companies. I call them Facebook companies because they're principally owned by Facebook. And so they will be exchanging information. People have raised a lot of objections to this. And people are saying that these are the same companies that were entrusting our lives and our so-called freedom of speech to. What do you think about this issue of them using private information for corporate gain?
I think we're just being paranoid because Google already has all our info. Your Gmail, your Android device, your browsing history, your YouTube history, your virtually almost everything we do, your map movement and all that, your location is on, and they're tracking everything you're doing. And the reason why the only thing that they use this info for the most is to help advertisers. I'm an advertiser. I love the fact that they can now use your activities on WhatsApp. I can now use your activities on WhatsApp to target you on Facebook or Instagram. Because we already use your activities on other websites to target you using Facebook. What's it called? Google Ads. We're targeting you anyway. We are using a mobile app, and you are playing a game and you are seeing pop-up ads. How do you think this one got there? So the only way I think people can escape all this is to get off all platforms. Go off grid. Go off grid. Go and use a burner phone. If you don't want to be seen, if you don't want anybody to see your activities, go and use a burner phone. Like I said earlier, these platforms have terms and conditions. People that refuse to accept the terms for WhatsApp, the new terms and conditions, you know what is happening to them? They cannot upload media to their status. They can only type. So if you don't want these things, if you don't want to accept these new terms, get out of there. If you can't stand the heat. Some people may be saying I'm talking like I don't care. No, I'm talking from the business perspective. I'm a businessman. So I understand the fact that if this is what a business needs to get to the next level, they will do whatever they need to get to the next level, and they will try as much as possible not to hurt you while doing so. But that is not 100% guaranteed. Some people are going to get hurt, some will get burnt. It is part of what makes our world the way it is.
Like someone said, if you cannot see the product that is being sold, then maybe you are the product. And it looks like that's exactly what the social media companies do.
I've always
we are their products.
That the people are the products.
Yes.
The advertisers are the customers. So as much as I am the product, I try to be more of a customer than a product. So when you advertise, you become a customer at that point in time. And okay, how do you think Facebook becomes the most loved platforms as far as targeting is concerned when it comes to running ads on the internet? It is because of this detailed targeting. I can target you to your street. I can target you based on your age, based on, if you are engaged, newly engaged, if you are, if all those tiny things. You are a parent of a toddler, you're a parent of a teenager, all those things I can use to target you. I can target people who just got engaged, even if you don't show it on your platform that you got engaged, but you posted a picture of your engagement ring. It has captured it. If you don't want to be, if you don't want these guys to have info about you, don't put it out there.
Don't stay on those platforms.
Don't stay on the platform.
But you know what? The picture you've described now makes me feel that maybe these big tech companies are more dangerous than we thought, because it means they know practically everything about us. Look at what you described. They have Google controls Gmail, so they know all your documents. They know the information you're exchanging.
Yes.
And then they have Google Maps. They know where you're going.
Yes.
They control even your Uber ride, your Bolt ride. They know your destinations. They know where you live. They're even better than the government at that.
That is it.
They have YouTube. They know the videos you're watching. They know the kinds of things that you're interested in. And they have several other services like that. So they're controlling our lives. They have information about every single thing that we do. I mean, that makes me feel like maybe they're the God's eye.
To make the matters worse, so to say, they have the best platforms. They have platforms that if you are not on those platforms, you know out. That you have a problem.
So we are all willingly going to them and handing over our personal data and our lives.
In years to come, this discussion, people will start having it about Zoom. Zoom came to our rescue, right?
Yes.
But the time is coming that people will start complaining about Zoom. Because at the moment, everybody is on Zoom. There was a time people were complaining about Microsoft. They've left Microsoft behind now. But in years to come, this discussion, Zoom will be involved in this discussion. Because imagine a lot of corporate meetings, corporate decisions going on Zoom over now. Zoom, and government having meetings on Zoom. They said it's encrypted, end-to-end encryption and all that. But we all know that it can be decrypted. The same people that encrypt these things can decrypt it.
So, you know that even for WhatsApp, one of the biggest trends has been the encryption, the end-to-end encryption. But then the same WhatsApp is now coming up with terms and conditions that suggest that they are creating more and more ways to share that so-called encrypted data.
I think that they've started sharing this thing even before, because someone has complained to me, I think mid last year or thereabout, that he was chatting with someone about a particular subject, and the next time he opened Facebook, he saw an ad about that subject. So he asked me, "Are you sure these things are not linked?" And my reply was, "You're sharing your information with Facebook as a company already. The Facebook company owns all these things, just like Alphabet owns
Google and
all those services. Things. So you may not be able to, differentiate. I mean, to block yourself from one while you're on the other. So, except your phone number is not linked to your email, that is linked to the Facebook account. And if we were talking about Google, except you are not using their operating system, and over 70% of the people in this part of the world use Android devices. So you see that we're in already. We're in already. And people are talking about the Huawei's, what's it called now? The new OS that Huawei is coming up with. But would you prefer to put your information in the hands of China or in the hands of America? So that is a question that we will need to answer if we are planning to move to, that platform.
One last question. If we look at the way the Nigerian government handled the EndSARS protests or the protesters, we've seen that after the Lekki incident, they've been going after people, they've been blocking bank accounts, they've been seizing passports, denying people the right to travel, and things like that. And then after that incident as well, they began to push this issue of the national identity card. So that suggests that they're trying to get into the game as well. They're trying to be able to link, SIM cards, link people's identities with what they do online. And so they would be able to monitor people better. Looking at all of that in the context of our larger discussion about censorship and freedom of speech and, the use of online platforms, what do you think? And what's your advice for people out there?
So there have been reports.
Okay.
There have been,
allegations
that people are being picked up from social media. I remember years back, I think around 2011 or thereabouts, or 2012, that my Facebook account, was suspended. Of course, because I remember that during that period, I was talking about something that was going on in the country, and I lost my Facebook account to that. So I know that I have proof of that I was talking about this, and this happened to me. So, and there was a time the Nigerian army said they were going to monitor activities on social media. So that one is there if they do not mark it as fake news again. So arguably we can say that these things are being monitored already. But I believe that they want to take it to another level, whereby you do anyhow, you see anyhow immediately, Once all our devices are linked to NIN, everybody is identified. You have your address there, even if you change address. Nigeria, one thing about Nigerian security operatives is if they want to do something, they will do it excellently. So if they want to get you, even if you go under your mama's bed to go hide, they're going to get you there. I believe that people should only talk about what they have proof of. If I am saying somebody is doing something and it is just mere allegation, like we've seen in the case of Donald Trump and the American system.
Yes,
it is useless. It's something that can make people, make government, treat you anyhow. Of course, nobody's rights should be infringed. Even if somebody commits something, it should be tried in the court of law. The government, the seat of government, the executive is not, the executive arm of government is not the court of law. The executive arm of government is just an arm, not the totality of government in a normal setting. So every one of us, every individual should understand the fact that if you want to say something about the government, even if you are criticizing government, which I believe we all have the right to, there's a difference between criticizing government and attacking persons. There is a level you can, there is an extent you can get to that it will begin to sound like treason. If you are clamoring for a removal of a government, a regime change without the proper process, either you want to use the legislative to impeach or to withdraw, you want to call back an elected official or something, we are asking that, that is treason. And we should never forget that freedom on social media, freedom of speech on social media is to the extent that the law permits. There is a law. And anything we are doing, we should always know the stand of the law before we get involved in anything.
What really is fake news, and how can people online avoid being instruments of fake news? How can we stop spreading fake news?
Okay, so now the first thing, fake news is any form of news that is not authentic, that is not the true story. So now, to spot fake news, one of the easiest ways that fake news is being spread in this country is through WhatsApp broadcast. And our parents are doing a hell of a job doing that for us. So one of the things I do when you send me a broadcast like that, okay, I ask you, can you confirm this? So 90% of the time, people go mute. So you know that's not true. And WhatsApp has made it easier for us now. You see forwarded from every message that comes like that. So once it's forwarded, you know that
you can tell that there's a
chance that this is not authentic. Now, you know, when the issue of COVID-19 and 5G happened in Nigeria, there was a voice note that was going everywhere, and somebody was saying it's a certified clinic on COVID-19 and all that. The introduction alone, I said, this is fake. Okay, what is your name? Where do you work? You can't mention that. You are just giving us gibberish. So things like that are part of the ways you know that this is fake news. Now, if somebody sends you a link that says you will receive so amount of money if you do this and all that, the first thing to do is not to go and check the link. The first thing to do is ask the person, have you claimed your own? Most of the time, they'll say, they said I should forward it to 5 groups first, or forward it to 10 people before and you know it's fake. Another thing is, if you open a link and you do not see the HTTPS or the padlock sign on the header of the browser of your browser, then that link is most likely fake link. Another thing is for pictures. Okay, you can use tinyeye.com or Google Lens, Google image search for reverse searching of images. Know the original place where this image is originated from. Some images were going around during the EndSARS that this person got shot. Some of the images were originated from South Africa, some from some other African countries. Some came like 5 years back. So you need to find out this. Then if it's a video, when you're looking at a footage, look for places where there are breaks. Most of those things are done shoddily. So you see a place where transition happened and disjointment and all that. Then for some, it's decoloration that changes things. And then for audio clips and video clips of, say, somebody said something, they use this against politicians and church people a lot. Said, see what the pastor said, see what this politician said. When most of the time, they will just cut out a small part of it. The Donald Trump campaign used the same thing when they took a small part of Dr. Fauci and they took a small part of his speech and used it that the deficits that Donald Trump has done the best anybody can do for, and he later came out to debunk it. So when you hear that part, ask for the full tape.
Yes, so that you can have
context. Because I can be talking now and say, Olumide, you are not serious. Maybe what we were saying, you said something and I said, no, you can't be serious saying this. And somebody just brought it out and said, Olumide is not serious. Do you understand? So you should ask for the full, or in fact, most of the speeches people use, the full text or the full length of the speech is already on the internet. So you can always search it out yourself. Use Google, use YouTube, search it out yourself. Then you'll be able to have the full context and be able to deduce which is fake, which is not fake. Another thing is, when you hear something, you see something on the internet, look for the major news outlets. Are they reporting it? If they're not reporting it, it's most likely fake. So there are still other ways you can, get to deduce these things. But I think I've touched the major ways that you can actually know if this is fake or not.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Jide, CEO of Spark Connect Solutions. It's been nice having you.